Yes, here we are.
Hello!
It is I, Callum Johns.
And it is I, the Jeff creature that occasionally appears.
Occasionally.
Occasionally.
With a really good shirt on.
Yes. Big old Ewoks.
Is it what?
Oh, heavens. I'm going already. Goodbye. It's been great.
But yeah, today we're going to talk about Star Wars Visionaries.
Yes, and here's one I prepared earlier.
Aha, yours is not even opened.
Ooh. Fresh. Fresh produce. Fresh produce today only. So, lovely.
Yeah.
Here it is.
They're interesting doing a combined comic book sort of discussion, I'll call it, because it's sort of a review, but also we'll talk about stuff, so...
Well, when I knew we would be covering it, I thought I'd better bring my own copy, so, yes. Here we are. Here we are covering Star Wars Visionaries, which I guess a lot of people incorrectly label as Infinities, because, not all Infinities, but we will get to that one at a time.
And I'm going to update my timeline to do that as well, because I accidentally did that before reading it as well.
Rude. Rude. This is one of the people I'm talking about. Walk of shame.
Oh, when you read it, it makes sense.
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
So yeah, it's released in 2005, and it's 10 exciting tales from the concept artists that helped create the movie Revenge of the Sith.
Hey. Yeah. So, it is, I guess, in a way, it's unusual the way it was developed because these guys almost had free reign over what it was they could do. It was just like a creative outlet sort of a thing. But as we just might have hinted at, a lot of these stories end up being perfectly in line with continuity anyway. So, that's a bit of a win. Bit of a win, really. And we will get to it later, but it might have also had a bit of input from some rather large names. So, their input does help maintain canonicity. But more on that later. For now, I guess we start wherever Cal says.
Yeah, I thought it makes sense to go through the table of contents and go story by story.
Wow, that is exciting, ladies and gentlemen. Brace yourselves. Here comes a table of contents.
Ooh. Oh boy. It's got the really cool Grievous art there.
It does, yep. It's got the Grievous floating around the back there and not so much floating around in the back there.
It almost looks like, It almost looks like when Star Wars Theory did his fan film for Vader when it was floating in the back there.
Yeah, look, he's not looking well. He's not looking well. I'm going to be honest. I'm not a doctor, but he's missing his limbs and everything from like the waist down. So, and whatever is left is heavily bandaged. So I'm not, as I said, not a doctor, but I do feel like that's in a rough way.
Is he a cyborg or just a metal mummy?
It's a good question.
Anyway, the first story is Old Wounds.
Yes. Old Wounds, which incidentally brings up new wounds, because what are they doing bringing Darth Maul back? Yeah, it's probably one of those comics that at first it wasn't controversial because it just simply wasn't canon. So, it was definitely labeled as Infinities, but at first. So, I probably should have also brought along, in some way, some of the original discussions that were had on the Star Wars forums with Leland Chi, who discussed the canonicity of that particular story. And it was a bit touch and go, because there's one point where I believe, and I'm going to find him, where is he? He's not there, never mind. No, he is there. So, it shows Watto, or what is perceived to be Watto, lying dead on the ground, which was actually the most uncanonical thing of the comic. But Leland Chi himself points out, Leland Chi himself points out, I might find it later and we can just drop the comment right there, right where But he did mention...
It takes two hands to handle a whopper.
Hey! But yeah, it doesn't mention him by name, it just says an old junk dealer in Mos Espa choked up a name before us. So, it may or may not even be Watto, in which case you can make this fit canonically. But I guess...
What if Watto had a child?
Son of Watto.
Yeah.
Son of Watto. What would you call him?
Dotto.
Dotto. Baby Dotto. Well, Baby Dotto's not doing well. He's doing worse than Grievous. Grievous was missing everything from the waist down. Dotto is missing everything from the neck down, which, in most cases, is fatal.
Well, then Maul was also missing everything from the waist down as well.
Oh, definitely, and he did quite well. But we are getting ahead of ourselves. So, Old Wounds. What is basically the premise?
The premise is Darth Maul survived.
Wonderful. Darth Maul survived and comes back and just goes, whoa. I've also just remembered that there was a fan film made about Old Wounds, which we should probably review after this. I don't know if you've ever seen it.
I don't think I have.
There is a fan film of Old Wounds. I don't know if it actually gets all the way through to the end. I feel like it does, but we should probably review that immediately afterwards because it was pretty good.
Yeah, that'd be good.
But so the idea is effectively that Darth Maul has survived,
and he wants revenge on Kenobi for slicing him.
Yeah, it's just taken him an extraordinarily long time to find Kenobi.
What's really cool is, like, it shows the start of the battle here. He has really long horns. I'm putting the right spot. And it's like it's taken a lot of time for him to recover.
Yeah, a lot of time and a lot of time in rehab, learning how to walk again.
Yeah.
Just hanging around in hospitals.
No death Amirians to just magic their way in and it's all him.
That's it. But no, the whole horns growing thing is I don't know canonically within the EU how many of them grew horns, because we do see some, well, I mean they grew horns, in terms of length, because we do see some elderly ones here and their horns aren't very long. But then again, I am reminded that there's not the first species, which we can probably cover later, that do that sort of thing within their old age. Their horns go grey or they grow a bit longer, which we can cover later, so... I don't know if he would technically grow his horns that long with old age.
And I don't know if it's old age or just not being trimmed, because they're vestigial horns. And I guess in the wave combat, he'd want to not have them in the way, as well as they could be worn down if he was charging into headbutting people.
Do you think they do file their horns down, though, as a species? Do they have like hairdresser shops where they can just go and the guy's got like a nail, big massive file and just...
For the ones that want to feel like they're having a haircut but don't have hair? Sure.
Or the ones that do have half a head of hair, so the front is horns.
I can almost imagine him sharpening his horns and just wanting to headbutt Kenobi. It should be a fun little attempt for him to do.
Oh, look, a headbutt from Maul, you wouldn't want it. You would not want that. No.
But it'd be a cool moment if he tried to headbutt Kenobi and they just sliced the horns.
Well, he does lose a bit of a horn here at some point, doesn't he?
Lose,
so
I think. What's interesting as well, Uncle Owen shoots him.
Go Owen.
Go Owen.
Yeah, I don't know how well this is going to show up on camera. I apologise in advance, but Maul loses... Oh, that's showing up terribly. That is... I apologise so much.
The lamp does not help with that.
I am not showing any more panels
but
from
it
this
does
comic.
show here that some of his horns have been...
Yeah, that's a bit I was trying to show them. It's completely white.
I'm just holding it back a bit so it's not glaring.
Is my comic less... Is mine more glossy than yours?
Hold it back here.
Mine's more glossy than yours, I think.
Different lighting.
Different lighting?
The lamp's facing this way more, but when you put it closer, it'll just be all shiny.
It is a behind-the-scenes tour of how Cal does his videos.
Because I've still got a student budget and cannot afford fancy lights.
He blames a student budget. It's actually all of the Elita comics he has bought.
And probably the Star Wars ones I'm starting to buy now.
Yes, those as well. So, his entire budget is blown on comics. There's no apologies made. None at all. No. None at all.
But I got this.
Yeah. he got one of these. Which was pretty good. Yeah, so it definitely is one of the, I guess, more fun comics to explore. I wish I could find this quote, but there was a quote from one of the editors at the time that pointed this out and just said this story is quite ridiculous. The idea of Maul coming back was quite ridiculous. I bet he ate his words in a few years afterwards, after this was made. But yeah, because there's not many times you get to see a dynamic between Owen and Obi-Wan either, and usually when we do, it is pretty much a get off my property sort of a thing.
Which it establishes actually at the end of this comic, which is interesting. Why?
Yeah.
He says, "Get off my lawn."
Because every time you're here, the devil turns up. In this case, it's definitely the devil. But yeah, so...
And the devil wears nada.
What? Wonderful, what a pun. What an absolute pun.
But it's based off of this concept art as well.
Yeah, the devil wears nada.
Yeah, the devil wears nada.
Perfect. Oh boy. Oh boy. So in terms of canon, where would we put this? Well, I have kind of discussed this before. The issue with our favourite series ever, the Clone Wars. I don't know, if you try and pull it out, obviously you can't, but that's a discussion that we've had in a previous video. But in terms of the EU, since after the Clone Wars was made, you know, Maul comes back in the Wrath of Darth Maul. It's established that he survives the fall in Naboo, and the comic where with his brother, obviously, I forget the name of it.
Names of comics, there's so many of them.
But what's the name of that last one? The one that they took over to canon? I've completely forgotten.
Oh, Son of Dathomir.
Son of Dathomir, there we go. So in those sort of things, so in some of the comics and the novels, it's established that Maul does survive through Naboo, but within the EU, that story is then never closed off. So you read The Wrath of Darth Maul and you go, whoa, he actually survived. This is incredible. And then you read some of the other younger readers' novels and go, oh, he's still there. What's happening? And there's never any closure. And so within the expanded universe, this comic kind of gives you the only closure you're ever going to get to Darth Maul's story, unless you just headcanon it that he definitely died in Naboo, which I wouldn't blame you for in the slightest.
But before TCW, this was definitely Infinities.
Yeah, definitely Infinities, and then TCW kind of helped adjust that. Although, as I said, that discussion with Leland Chi, where he did say that this is definitely C canon, it's just that Watto's death is not, but then it's not really pointed out if this is Watto. That did come before TCW, I'm quite certain, that discussion. So I'll find it, and if I can find it, we'll put a link below, or just put it in the video, because...
We'll put the one below.
Hey! We're going to have Yaddle stories are coming for no apparent reason in the middle of this video.
Just for references.
Yep. I do like that we get those references. Not many people get those references in our lives, so that is nice.
So let me know if you got that reference in the comments below.
Below. The one below. We did it again.
Maybe there'll be more than one below.
There could be. That would be weird. Imagine being stuck in a hole and you're the only one down there and suddenly there's this other voice. Hello. But yeah, so moving on, I guess, through the table of contents, if you will.
The Artists of Naboo.
Aha. The Artists of Naboo likes...
Oh, I didn't mention who wrote Old Ruins. Aaron McBride wrote Old Ruins.
So, Aaron, we blame you for everything that happened since.
And The Artists of Naboo is written by Eric Tiemens. I think that's how you pronounce it.
And The Artist of Naboo clearly likes slightly washy and dark watercolour.
Yeah.
But, it's actually in this watercolour.
Look,
the art is nice, but it's very, I guess, very concept arty in its presentation. Which, since it came from the concept artists of Revenge of the Sith, is hardly surprising.
Yeah, which I'm guessing they just pulled a lot of the concept art and put it in here.
Yeah, which is perfectly fine. And it does tell a rather nice story.
Is that Indiana Jones?
Yes, that's Indiana Jones.
Indiana Jones is just sitting in the corner here. Just sitting in the corner.
It's one of the only in-universe depictions of Indiana Jones. The other one, of course, happening from the... what was that comic called? The one where Han and Chewie end up in the...
I forget what it's called now, but the one where it's...
End up on Earth.
When he crashed...
Into the Great Unknown. Into the Great Unknown.
That's right.
Yep, it's a Tales comic where Indiana Jones also appears. It could be Indiana Jones, it could also be V for Vendetta. I'm not really sure.
Why not both?
¿Por qué no los dos? Yeah, so it's... I guess it just tells a cute little story about this artist who becomes infatuated with Padme and follows her around a bit because he's not a creepy stalker at all. And eventually, somehow, through some intense study of her, works out she's going to be in trouble and goes to save her.
And then dies because he was saving her.
Yeah, so whoops about that. Whoops about that. So poor old mate doesn't do very well.
Yeah, so the...
Yeah,
the art
Did
is
he
all
die,
the...
though? Did he actually die?
I think so.
No, he did not. We're going to put a correction in here. Bim, 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 correction time.
Later, he recovered from laser wounds to continue on painting intuitive visions. Alderaan concerned him next.
Yes.
So if he went to Alderaan because it was in trouble...
So he did technically die. So he does die in the end. It's just implied.
Yeah.
He could have left. What if he went to Alderaan, he painted everything and then left, and as he was going in the rearview mirror, he just sees...
And he goes... painting inspiration.
Just cracks out the easel, just gonna put in some happy birds. Yeah, what if he did? He just driving away in his ship.
Here's some happy little asteroids.
As he's leaving, he's like, I didn't know there was a moon here. Where'd that moon come from? So, but yeah, it's I guess a very visually dark comic. Hard to work out a lot of the details once again because it is concept art. In a way though, I kind of like that the only time they really use any color is when he is looking at Padme. Like, I mean, this is just such a beautiful, sunny blue sky sort of thing, and then when he's without her, everything just goes to this sort of.
And it's his visions of darkness.
Yeah, murky grey. So. But it also might be one of the only in-universe depictions of a monocle, I'm going to be honest. You don't get a lot of monocles hanging about.
No.
A few Imperial dignitaries perhaps during the Marvel comic run, but other than that, this might be the very first, well, not the very first, but one of the rare instances of a monocle appearing. But yeah, a few Imperial warlords, dignitaries, that sort of thing. It's not unheard of, just rare. So that's nice.
That's cool.
Very nice.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
I guess the next comic is...
I guess we'd say for canonicity for this one, artistic interpretation for the visuals.
Well, I'd probably once again, and I don't mean to bring the man's name up like it's punctuation, but to use Chi's idea of if it doesn't directly contradict anything, it can be considered canonical. This doesn't directly contradict anything. There's nothing in there that you go, oh, well, this can't happen because... Well, not really. I mean, a painter followed her around, painted her a lot, and then saved her life and survived. Sure, yeah. That doesn't contradict anything. So I would... I don't know where you were about to put it, but I would put it in C canon. That's fine.
Yeah,
Absolutely
that's
fine.
where I'd put it too.
Yeah.
I was just going to say artistic interpretation for the visual part of it, because of course it's concept arty and open to interpretation.
Yeah, it's...
like a lot of this.
Yeah, Naboo, contrary to the depicted belief, is not made entirely out of coal.
Yeah.
Yeah, so...
And it's not always night.
No.
Not always night.
The planet of eternal night and darkness. And beauty at the same time. Yes.
That'd be an interesting concept for
Yeah.
a planet.
It's like everything is beautiful, but there is no sun and you can't see it. The end.
People use flashlights.
Yeah. It's like, whoa, this place is so pretty. Yeah. I want to say that there is a mole. There is a mole that does that. Random fact number 1: there is a mole. Yeah. Why am I bringing up moles? No, there's a mole that has really pretty. It's because of the oil. It's got oil in its skin, so the dirt doesn't clog up in its fur, and so it gets that kind of an oil slick, pretty look about it. But of course, the mole has no eyes and doesn't know how beautiful it is.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So here we have random animal facts with Jeff.
Why not indeed, eh? Why not indeed? But yeah, I was gonna say, unless you had anything else to add, that the next comic is the total opposite. It's incredibly colourful and a bit of a trip.
Yeah. Go ahead.
It's a bit of a trip. So to keep up with the structure we've had so far, Wat Tambor and the quest for the sacred eye of the albino Cyclops.
Ooh.
If you thought that was a mouthful, prepare for the rest of the comic. So it's by Michael Murnane, and if I have assaulted that name, I'm so sorry, but it looks like Murnane, and I'm going to say it's Murnane. It's Michael Murnane. Yeah.
Murnane.
So it does start, I guess, in an unusual way by having no colour at all. Voila. But then instantly turns into this colourful escapade, mostly of greens, that, I don't know, it's really unusual. The designs or the art style of it is incredibly reminiscent of some of the, I don't know, maybe the drug-induced artwork of the 60s and 70s sort of thing. Just a lot of spirals and colours and quirkiness, and I mean, it's definitely beautiful. I don't know if I've seen anything else quite like it in the entire EU, but it's definitely beautiful.
I don't think we have.
Probably not. Probably not. That looks like something I would have worn on like a t-shirt when I was 5 years old, like one of those hang tang kind of looking t-shirts that we had in Australia. I don't know if the rest of the world had those, but there were these absolutely mad designs that we used to have, and it reminds me, very reminiscent. Very reminiscent. Is that, by the way, Illuminati confirmed? It's got the triangle and the big eye on top.
Yeah.
In universe, Illuminati confirmed. Boom.
It's even
Booyah.
got a magic box with an eye on it.
Oh heavens, no! Illuminati.
Illuminati confirmed.
We've confirmed them.
And then she opens the box and it sucks into his socket for whatever reason.
I beg your pardon?
He opens the box and this black goopiness goes into his eye socket.
Well, there's a quote for the ages.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to touch that. So, anyway, moving on. It is, I guess, an incredible journey for Wat Tambor. Oddly enough, we don't really know how his particular species' brain works. And if this is in fact how they see the universe, because of course every animal, I guess, has its own ways of sensing everything, sound, sight, that sort of caper. A bit like dogs can only see a certain range of colours. Humans can only see a certain range of colours. We can't see in ultraviolet, and many other animals can. I'm going to hold back on the animal fact for this one, but it is worth pointing out that maybe this is how Wat Tambor sees the world.
Quite possibly.
Quite possibly. And,
if that is so, we need more of these comics.
yeah, and in which case it's probably how he ends up to his demise, because at the end we can only assume that he's turning up to Mustafa.
Yeah.
Because it's his lava planet,
This
and once again that's how he sees everything.
Lava
So
planet on this side. On the other side.
after this absolutely joyous, almost yellow submarine-esque journey through the galaxy, he ends up going to a planet covered in lava, and spoiler alert, no, we can't spoil that, can we? People might not have seen episode 3. If you haven't seen episode 3 and you are watching this, what are you doing?
Yeah, exactly.
Also welcome. I mean, you're still welcome, just that's a
Just
bit
welcome,
odd.
guys. Just pause the video here.
Yeah,
And watch Revenge of the Sith.
Go watch an entire movie and then come back.
Which, yeah, it's interesting. Where would you place this one?
Well, I think once again, if you're going to put it, it depends on interpretation. If you're going to say, does this contradict anything else in the EU? Well, no. There's nothing in here that you say, oh, that couldn't have happened because this, or this couldn't have happened because that. It would come down to that particular alien's own, experiences in the universe. And if this is how he sees it, because, I mean, it's not the art style is not realistic, but it's not the first time we've seen something in C canon where the art style is not realistic. I mean, the entire original Clone Wars animations were far from realistic, but the stories are purely canonical, so I wouldn't write it off based on that.
I forget, did he lose his eye sometime? Like, because it starts with him with his eye lost. Is there a story of how he lost his eye?
Should probably look that up, because if there is, I can't immediately pick it. Can't immediately pick that.
Because I was thinking this one was more on the Infinity side, especially for the artistic depiction, but you bring up a great point about seeing from the species' point of view.
Yeah, because
I don't get many stories from their point of view either.
No, that's it. There's not a lot of alien characters, although I think that's probably what I really loved about the Episode 1 Starfighter comics. Was when you were reading those, it's like an entire comic series and there are almost no human characters. There's 2 humans depicted in issue 1. There is 1 human depicted in issue 3, I think it is, and they go into like this cantina thing and there's 1 old pilot there. But otherwise you've got an entire comic series with no humans. It's like all from the alien point of view, which is just so cool. That's another little side note for later. But yeah, in terms of just alien creatures and what's going on, I do wonder in some weird way if the hunt for the albino, or rather the quest for the eye of the albino cyclops. I wonder if the albino cyclops is in some way like the white whale, like a Moby Dick sort of a reference. I might have to reread it again just to be sure, but
And I almost feel like if he needed a new eye, they would have just put a prosthetic in.
you know, it is the Star Wars universe. They're pretty good at that stuff by now.
Yeah.
They are pretty good.
So I was like, maybe he just was on drugs while he was getting his eye put in.
Yeah. Or like some people just saw it as a part of themselves. They could have got a prosthetic and went, no, this is a part of me now. I'm just going to... It's a badge of honour, if you will.
This black stuff went into my eye and that's my eye now.
Yeah. I can't explain it before that. I have black goop in my eyeball. Yeah, so, no, look, I love it. It's definitely worth a read. It's definitely interesting. I guess it's more interesting if you do headcanon it yourself. I don't know if it's even headcanon. It probably is truly a depiction of the universe from his point of view. But that I cannot confirm.
That we'd have to talk to the author.
The author whose name I may or may not have murdered at the beginning of this.
Good old Mike Mernon.
Yeah.
Or Murnane.
Murnane. Well, speaking of names, Derek Thompson. There's one that we can all pronounce quite happily.
Yeah. That's a nice one that wrote Synthesis.
Yeah, now, Synthesis or Synthesis? Probably Synthesis. But anyway,
Yeah.
we'd have to also ask Derek about that. But Synthesis is probably my favourite out of the whole little compilation bit, which is why I'll let Cal go first.
Alrighty then. So
Throw you under the bus.
So it basically has Palpatine just randomly in an underground lair somewhere, no one can interrupt him, with a giant crystal hanging in there.
He's been interior
Cool.
decorating.
And so I'm just looking through it to remind myself exactly what order things went in.
There's a lot going on.
He does a blood sacrifice and eats a worm, which then allows him to electrify a crystal.
So much going on.
Looks like there's past Sith behind him as he's electrifying Coruscant. And some other planets possibly. Well, it's interesting because it has lightning going through and it's dark and stormy, and then it goes to Padme and she's just holding her stomach and she looks surprised.
It's affecting her child.
Or is it?
Oh.
Maybe she just got home from finding out that she's pregnant. And she went, what?
What is this? Also, is that lightning?
Now I don't have to keep up my public appearance.
What do I do now? Yeah.
And then it also has Yoda in the middle of a battle getting distracted somehow. And he loses his lightsaber. And then Obi-Wan doesn't turn up and go, don't lose this. This weapon is your life.
My life is a weapon you have.
So, and it looks like he somehow affects the dark side in that way to
Yep.
distract Yoda from how I interpret that. Because of course this is all very arty and open to interpretation because there's no dialogue in this at all.
Yeah, it's one of two comics in here that have absolutely no dialogue. This is the first.
And then it has some weird eyeball zoom in. I was just noticing this eyeball
Technical
zoom in.
term, and now we're moving on to the eyeball zoom in.
Yeah, and then it goes to Anakin lifting up his what should be his prosthetic hand, and it looks weird because he's sort of holding it up, and then when it clamps down, it turns into Palpatine's hand with lightning sizzling inside of it.
So there are certain things that I would say about that too, but continue, please.
Yeah, it's good to
have an overview of what's happening.
Good to have an overview because I'm just like. Yeah, I almost missed that it was Palpatine's hand first. I'm like, wait, did he regenerate Anakin's arm? No.
What's happening there?
And then it goes back to the crystal and shows a few Jedi and things in the crystal, which shows that I guess he's having visions and seeing over to what all these Jedi are doing and whatnot.
Definitely.
And then the giant space worm appears.
Because why not?
Because why not?
Look, to be perfectly fair, he did eat a worm, so it's only fair that the worm comes back and eats him. It's a cycle of life, and it's beautiful.
But he takes his hood off, and his hair's still a bit ginger, which I thought was interesting. And
he's been using the old hair dye.
This giant worm eats him, and then he electrocutes her from the inside. And
because
actually,
why not?
The look of it reminds me of a claw slug.
Yeah.
A bit.
Yeah, except for all the little army wiggly bits.
Yeah, I mean,
And
it's obviously a giant mutated.
And,
sort of
whatever's happening with its tail, by the way, which wow.
So I don't know where this giant worm came from in this underground lair that no one's supposed to be able to get into.
Well, you know, your security is pretty lax if a 12-ton slug can just crawl in and eat you.
Yeah.
At that point, you're gonna get ninjas.
And I don't get why he's eaten.
Well, I mean, it doesn't worry him in the least. I mean, the next panel, he just kind of pops out and turns it into confetti.
It turns into a bit like a
Ash.
Phoenix, sort of. He comes out of it looking younger, and his hair is dyed white.
Yeah, for reasons.
For reasons.
Don't question it, there are reasons.
And so then he returns to not being the Emperor in a big cloak.
Yep.
Which is interesting. He looks more like a senator. Palpatine there. Which is interesting.
So it's still pre Order 66, clearly.
Oh, it looks like that.
And so, yeah, Well, very, yeah.
And that you've got the red Imperial Guards. So maybe it's just at the turning point.
Yeah. Yeah, so it'd be the very end of the Clone Wars, basically, is when this is taking place. So, yeah, it's definitely probably one of my... Well, it probably is my favourite out of this entire book. Only because what at first looks like an absolute bizarre collection of ideas and images does seem to have an awful lot of meaning. And in terms of who was involved, it's the only comic, unless I have missed something, in Visionaries that has direct input from George Lucas and Ian McDiarmid. So both were consulted on what kind of powers Palpatine was going to have, what he was going to do, and what sort of things he was doing behind the scenes to, I guess, control the universe. Because we do keep getting told about how the Sith in general, like 400 years before Episode 1 or whatever, caused this rift in the Force with the dark side just like coming through, and all the Jedi went, "Oh, what was that? What's going on?" And so on and so forth. But we always get told about how Palpatine is influencing events throughout the galaxy, but I guess we don't get to see what that really means. Like, what was he doing? And this is kind of what he was doing, because the crystal seems to show images from all across the galaxy, different characters doing different things, and he can have influence over them all. Because when you mentioned Yoda, he seems to distract him, because Yoda's arm is going in a certain direction. He's losing his lightsaber, and at the same time, Palpatine's hand is going in the same direction. So it's almost like Palpatine's using the Force remotely across the galaxy to affect Yoda. And the same with Anakin. So Anakin's turned to the dark side, getting a bit grumpier, as it were. Palpatine is puppeteering these actions. Yeah.
It's very much symbolic of how he was manipulating Anakin.
Manipulating him the whole time, remotely, which is, It's a really fascinating look, I guess, of what kind of things Palpatine might have been getting up to.
And then they got to the end and here's a giant worm that ate him.
Yeah, the giant worm. Well, I mean, again, it's not beyond Sith magic to be able to call enormous creatures, deformed, horrible creatures, just from the dark side. Which we see over and over again, like the Leviathan sort of thing. So it's basically a worm Leviathan, I guess.
Yeah, it's basically Sith alchemy that he's using to be able to do all of this, and I guess that would be some sort of recompense sort of thing, like a side effect of it, I guess.
Yeah, and in terms of how he manages to manifest this Leviathan, and I'm going to call it a Leviathan. I know it technically isn't what we would usually call a Leviathan, but it is a large beast created by arcane Sith Force powers. If he manages to destroy it, as he does in these last panels, I don't know how... I mean, how do we show comics? And you know what? We're going to put images in here, surely.
Yeah, I can show photos if it's easier.
Let's put that in. As the worm disintegrates, I mean, obviously all of its material, all of its physical particles are still there, so next time you go in, you can pretty much just scoop up the ash and go again.
Have his goop juice.
Yeah. It's like, you'll be right, mate. Walk it off. Walk it off. You've just been disintegrated. You'll be fine. So yeah, it's fascinating, I guess. Upon first reading, you're like, this is just madness. What's happening? This is bizarre.
I had to read it a couple of times. To go, what's going on?
What? But when you really look into it and what's actually happening, because once again, there's no words to go off. When you look into it and what's actually happening and the visualizations, you're like, oh, this is really, really quite incredible. Like the lightning spreading the fear across Coruscant. You can see that everyone's absolutely terrified of this lightning and this storm, and like the younglings are having a very upset sort of a time. Not the most upset time they're going to have, which should be
the most upset time while they're alive.
Yeah, so this is a precursor to what happens afterwards, which also they're probably going to have mixed feelings about, I'd say.
Master Skywalker, what are we going to do?
What are we going to do?
You reminded me that I should be called Master. You reminded me that I should be...
It's like, thank you, I'm a Master. You may go, everyone, children.
The only people to call me Master, you'll be my Inquisitorius. You'll be Inquisitor.
I mean, he could have done that. He could have nipped off them all. Why not?
Yeah, they don't actually show him killing him.
No, well, that's probably also got something to do with being able to be shown in cinemas.
Well, they did see the hologram, so he killed some of them.
Yeah.
So if they didn't call him Master, Oh, gone.
Yep. He's going around like some kind of a hostage situation. It's like, am I a master?
Yes.
You may go.
Ooh.
And the child just runs out. Yeah. Dark
Child
Knight-
runs out into the clones.
You just hear this. Oh, I feel bad now.
Hey, they said I was a master.
Yeah.
They're not strong enough to survive.
That's it. He didn't kill them personally.
No.
No. But entrenched. Shall we entrenched?
We shall be entrenched.
Hey.
Which is illustrated by Alex Yeager and written by Alex Yeager and M. Zachary Sherman.
That fella. Actually, that's an assumption, isn't it?
P. Sherman.
M. could
42
easily-
Wallaby Way, Sydney.
Oh, I found Nemo. Found Nemo. Yeah, entrenched, by the way, I mean, I was going to say, entrenched is most certainly sea cannon, and going back, I would
Yeah,
also
yeah.
count Synthesis as sea cannon, believe it or not. And I think that was also the original Lucasfilm designation for that comic.
And
so.
I think I still look at it as the artistic interpretation.
Yeah.
Because the whole underground lair thing, I don't know if he really had a whole underground lair like that.
He had an entire area. He had the
Yeah.
whole building
He had the whole building, so
where you know, Maul and the Infiltrator was kept and everything in the, what was it, in the industrial area?
yeah, in
so,
the industrial district.
so it wasn't far away. So it could easily be, you know, within that building, in the industrial.
Easily, but-
Because I'm just trying to look at the end here, the architecture. Actually, I do like. I think I missed this on my first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and 20th reading. When you have a look, there's actually 2 of the original Senate guards as well shown at the end. So the blue Senate guards are on either side flanking him. But yeah, he's definitely leaving the building. Like, he's going across a bridge, so it's the industrial area. He's leaving the building, going back towards the Senate when he picks up all
He's
the
like,
red guards.
do not speak of this secret Sith business.
Like, yeah, it's like, we got you, mate. Don't worry. We got no worries. No
He's in a
one's saying
similar
boo.
meditation chamber to Vader as well.
Which is very, very, very nice. Maybe it's the same one. Maybe they've got like a share in the meditation chambers. They've got one each.
Maybe.
Although Palpatine's one looks a little bit more chlory. Is that a word? Can we call it chlory? It looks
Yeah,
chlory.
chlory.
It looks chlory.
It looks like a holocron that he sacrifices blood to, actually.
We don't know what Palpatine's doing in
But
there.
whatever. Anyway.
Old mate's he's lost his mind. He's lost his mind.
He's off his rocker.
Off his nut. He is. Yeah, Entrenched. So moving on to Entrenched, which is definitely canonical. A brilliant, brilliant comic because it depicts whose child? It's Mon Mothma's kid. So,
Whose child? I was trying to think, who could be funny? Yeah. And I ran out of time.
who could be the funniest? Mon Mothma. Oh,
That's Han Solo's lost child.
Han Solo's lost child. Yep. That would be exciting. Bria Theron just turns up with a child randomly.
He's like, Han, you're the father. How do you know? Yeah, how do you know?
It's like, do you remember that one night on Yalisha? Like, oh no. Oh no. Oh no. What did we do?
And Leia just looks at him like, you what?
It's like, Bria was a rebel too. It's fine. It's totally fine. She died getting us the Death Star plans. Go away. So,
But
yeah.
she didn't, if she's coming back.
Well, the child could have survived. I mean, Bria Theron could have died. Yeah, Red Hand Squadron gets destroyed, but Bria's child was back at home,
Yeah.
crying its nut off, and the neighbours went, "Who's this?" It's a baby.
Where's this nut gone? Yeah.
Baby Solo. So, in terms of headcanon, we've just written about 3 different fan fictions in one go. So, if we want to go back to what's actually in the comics now, Entrenched does carry on the career, I guess, of Mon Mothma's son, her little boy.
I actually really like this because it shows at the end that it's going into the Return of the Jedi. But,
Yeah.
And we go, whoa, he just died.
Yeah. Oopie doozies.
And it gives a bit more depth to Mon Mothma.
Yeah, a bit more depth to her, what she's fighting for, what she's willing to sacrifice. You know, well, I guess she wasn't willing, but he got sacrificed nonetheless.
What the family was willing to sacrifice. I mean, she was a senator and gave up all her senatorial role and everything to have to be on the run and all that.
Yeah, so, poor thing.
She also got captured by the Emperor in Force Unleashed.
But we assume she got away and had a wonderful time.
Yeah, light side ending.
Yeah.
Light side ending. And
Dark
then,
side ending.
and then Sidious is like, I don't remember who any of them are.
Yeah. I don't remember who are these people. Yeah, Sidious got he got terrible memory loss in his old age. Terrible memory loss. But yeah, no, I do, I guess, once again, quite love the idea of the whole Battle of Hoth being shown from a different person's perspective, a different soldier.
Yeah.
We're not told, by the way, the obvious relationship with Mon.
Yeah, it's
until
only
later.
right at the end when
So we've spoiled it for everyone.
that's done. Well, if we're talking about the comic, you should have read it.
Unless they've thought they wanted to buy it.
Then we'll put this at the start.
Soz. So oh no! I mean, the comic came out what 2003,
2005, I think it said.
2005. So you've had ample time to read it. If you haven't read it in 15 years, well, there's nothing I can do for you. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Nothing I can do for you. But
Yes.
no, look, it basically does tell. It tells his story. Shows the Battle of Hoth from a different perspective. I especially love that he even fired the iron cannon. We get those little pew, pew, which is exactly the noise that it made. An enormous iron cannon buried into the surface of Hoth went pew, pew.
Yeah.
That's the noise it made.
I
can
even
see
had the twang.
it did. I can see why Ben Burt never hired me. Anyway,
It could be Ben Jeff.
hey Ben Jeff or Jeff Burt. We're very silly and we apologise in advance for anything that we say.
That's what makes it entertaining.
It is. It's what makes it entertaining. At least we like to think so. We entertain ourselves. I can't speak for all of you out there, but hello.
Alright, have fun. That's what matters.
We have fun and we have no goop juice, but that's fun.
I didn't get the good juice yet.
Didn't get any goop juice.
We also didn't get food.
Oh heavens, we're starving. Send food. Click the link below. There's a like. There's a like, subscribe, and send food.
Subscribe and like it and give me watch time. So if I get 1K subscribers, I can afford food.
Yes. Until that point, we are going to wither away on camera for everyone. Just live withering away. Do you reckon you get money for that? If you just like
People
live,
get money for like sleeping streams.
you know what? You have just given me the biggest. Really?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness! I'm going to bed. What am I awake for? Are you kidding?
Or you just have a stream with a chair sitting.
I mean, when I sleep, I apparently I snore like no get out, and I've also got cats that come and jump on me and stuff. So you'd get the cat video and the sleeping stream at the same time.
So you got everything going.
I've got
for
everything.
You. And if you manage to snore in a musical tone,
Yeah, well, I can
music show.
probably mumble in my sleep. If I have a Red Bull before I go to sleep, I could probably mumble in my sleep as well.
I've talked in my sleep. apparently.
Fantastic.
Not that I remember.
Well, you probably wouldn't, otherwise you'd be awake watching yourself sleep, which is,
Some Luke Skywalker captured by exact.
oh, look, it's an out-of-body experience, obviously.
Yeah.
It's an out-of-body experience, and, I mean, well done. Well done that you can remember your out-of-body experience, but it is unusual.
Yeah. Anyway, I guess we should get back to the comic.
Yeah, probably. Let's get on to the fourth precept, which is not the fourth comic in the book. Unless it is, but I'm pretty sure up to like 5.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
6. You know, they really should have made it the fourth comic, because that would have
They
just
should.
yeah, Easter egg that they've missed out on. Now, the fourth precept, if you thought synthesis was weird, brace yourselves for impact.
At least we're not saying if you thought what Tambor's story was weird.
No, the What Tambor's story was perfectly fine. Nothing wrong with that.
So, yeah, it's very arty and really cool.
It's got tremendous artwork, and it kind of seems to depict 2 force entities having some manner of a duel, not even within real space. I don't even know what dimension this takes part
The
in.
way the lightsabers are done reminds me of Ralph McQuarrie's art.
Yeah, like the really bright spark near the hilt and just goes to a fine point and just tapers off. It's, I mean, the artwork is absolutely beautiful, and I guess it depends, once again, if you're going to talk about multiple dimensions within the Star Wars universe, which Marvel did introduce back in the day. So they are there, and there's obviously all other kinds of things we can deal with, like the Celestials and so on and so forth. So it could be depicting something that is historically accurate within the EU. We just have no way to tell, and this is the second comic with absolutely no dialogue whatsoever. So when I mentioned before there was 2, this is the second one. No dialogue, not a peep.
It's almost, I was thinking of it, looking at this page with the Big Bang sort of thing. It almost looks like it's meant to tell the start of the Star Wars universe. down to the midichlorians infecting cells down the bottom.
Yeah, so
infecting endocytosis with the cells at the bottom.
So we're having absolutely no words. It's really hard to give this any kind of meaning within the universe beyond what you can glean from it yourself.
Yeah.
And what you can glean from it yourself is not much. So you got two Silver Surfer-looking figures, and they're fighting, all through space. And there's volcanoes and there's water. So there's a lot of the elements, I guess, for life beginning. You got the water, you got the volcanoes, and then you've got floating skull ships. Yes, you heard right. There's a floating skull ship just loitering around for no apparent reason. And then, possibly the Big Bang. And I think there is some irony in the fact that there's the Big Bang, life is beginning, midichlorians end. So the beginning is the end.
And also remembering midichlorians are just a side effect of being force sensitive, like having a high count, rather than them being the force itself.
It's a side effect of the prequels, I would have thought.
Hey! Yeah, that's really cool art.
It's really, really short.
Really short. That's nice.
It is.
And all that good stuff.
Yes. So, yeah, I mean, in terms of where you would put it, maybe you would put it as being the beginning of the universe, which would be fantastic because I guess it would put it to be the very first story told within continuity. We already go back, a million years or so to ancient Coruscant, back when it was called Notron?
Oh, I do not remember.
Yeah, the ancient name for Coruscant. But anyway, so it already goes back about a million years for that. This would push it back several billion years, so hooray!
And this sort of looks like Coruscant, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, in which case, look, they've done pretty well, considering the unit, actually, yes. Now that you mention it. The universe is beginning, but Coruscant is already built. Rome wasn't built in a day, but Coruscant was.
But because there's already two entities and there's some sort of ship still around and everything, perhaps there was some precursor species.
Hey.
Which is a precursor to the Rakatans and all the other species.
I mean, how far back do we want to go?
Which could have a precursor to themselves.
We're going to go back and tell the Star Wars stories of the first amoebas. The very first force-sensitive amoebas.
It could very much be that was people that weren't force-sensitive at all, and then this was like how force sensitivity came into play.
The beginning of the beginnings of the Force. It's a nice thought. It's a nice thought.
But yeah, that I'd go very artistic interpretation. I'd almost put it in S-canon just because of how you can interpret it.
Oh, I mean, unless we want to put it in WTF canon.
Yeah, why not?
We've discovered a new tier. We're just not going to say what it stands for. So, prototypes.
It's just what the frack.
What the frack?
Yeah.
What the
fair feck.
What the fair feck is going on here? Yeah. So, prototypes by Robert E. Barnes.
Yes, I thought this was interesting.
Did we mention the fourth precept was by Stephen Martinier? We didn't.
I think we forgot the one. Oh, well,
yeah.
we
Sorry.
remembered now.
Sorry, Stephen, but we've got you. Robert E. Barnes, Prototypes. Another purely C canon, in my mind, comic. So once again, in terms of infinities, what have we got so far? Possibly the fourth precept. It's hard to tell. Other than that, what Tambor I even said was fine. Yeah, so nothing's infinity so far.
I'd almost say Old Wounds. Pre-TCW would have been considered that because it was released before. But then
unless I find that discussion with Leland Shee, which I will find.
Because before that time it would have been like, well, we're not bringing more back.
Yeah, but then once he was brought back but there was no closure, I guess you'd have to bump it up or else there is no closure at all. So, interesting. But yeah, Prototypes tells a backstory to a wonderful character and everyone should know who he is, right?
Yes. Everyone should know who he is.
But we're constantly surprised by how many people cannot identify Dirge. But
yes, are you a Star Wars fan if you haven't watched the micro series?
Heavens, heavens, heavens. Now, one of the most unusual things, I guess, about this, which I'll get into at the end, is that it has a design retcon, which in my mind makes absolutely no sense. Now, I'll leave that until the end because we can go through the story and the characters first. But, yeah, there is a design choice that's made here that, for me, is a little bit on the nose. But, yeah, first of all, I guess, the story, the general gist of what's going on.
Yes, the general gist of the story. Well, Dirge is with... what's his face?
Good old
Skullman.
what's-his-face. Yeah.
Skullman.
He is with Skullman. Skeletor.
Jang. Oh yeah, I remembered it was Jang, but I was trying to think of the last name, and I forget the last name because I think of Jang Scarata.
Yeah, and it's like, well, this is not James Garata.
Yeah.
These are not him.
No. Basically,
The world's oldest clone.
it was Jang that was inspired the name for Jang Scarata, but I forget the last name.
Yeah, so we've got Master Jang.
And
got Dirge.
Dirge coming up to this scientist's place that goes, here, I've been experimenting on people. Become one of my subjects, basically.
Yeah, and so there's a whole bunch of experimenting going on and battles going on, trying to test different designs against one another. Trying to, because they're developing these suits, basically, these weaponized suits. Yeah, I think it all goes slightly awry when the Mandos turn up.
Of course, the Mandos turn up and
Make a mess of it.
Dirge kicks ass.
Yeah, so they discover that Dirge isn't so easy to kill. Even with...
Yeah, it seemed like they got suits for Dirge and Jang, but then for the other guy, they actually had some more cybernetic replacements that he did.
Seems to be a little more than a face from memory. It's not just like a face with a robotic body, which is very Alita.
Yeah.
Very Alita. Going back to the comics, we can see over
A full
Cal's
replacement
shoulder.
cyborg.
Full replacement cyborg. Yeah, so as the battle ensues and that sort of thing, unfortunately, things don't work out for Jang.
Yeah.
Not at all.
No.
No, Jang
he
actually
gets-
dies. Spoiler alert, Jang dies. So, unfortunately for Dirge, he's lost his fend. No fend.
You have to fend for yourself.
But yeah, so he decides to go off and fight the Mandalorians, which, yeah.
Then
The good old scientist. The scientist is fun. I actually do like this comic. So,
yeah.
one of the things that I guess I find weird, and I'll quickly get into this, is the design choice, because obviously Dirge has an enormous mythosaur skull on his armor. It's just, the sigil, I guess, if you will, the icon of the Mandalorians. And for a while that didn't really make sense. It's like, is he wearing that to stick his thumb up at them? And by thumb I mean a finger slightly more centrally placed. What is it that he's doing, by wearing that? Is it a way to like taunt them, or what is it? Or has he just borrowed some armor and that's there? Because he hates Mandalorians. So it doesn't really make sense that he has a Mandalorian symbol on his armor if he hates them and wants to kill them all.
Yeah.
So how they kind of retcon this is almost slightly worse, because Jang, his skull looks exactly like a mythosaur. Well, his head looks...
It just so happens.
it just so happens that this completely unrelated species has the exact same skull. And so it kind of retcons it in a way that the skull that he's wearing is in fact the skull of his friend who died at the hands of the Mandos. And it just happens to also look exactly like the... I mean, line for line looks exactly the same. So for me, it's like, well, this is a bit of a stretch. We are pulling an incredibly long bow. And it's not often I pick on the EU for this sort of thing. Quite often I'm very accepting of everything. But yeah, it does seem very strange to me that what was clearly a mythosaur skull has been turned into this. I'm like, I don't know what real world application we could probably put that in, but it'd be like an awful lot like if you were fighting a certain country and you just happen to have the exact same flag for two different reasons, but it's the exact same design. It's like, how'd that happen?
And I would think that it almost I almost was thinking, well, maybe he got a piece of Beskar that had that engraved on it.
Yeah, which would make
Which
sense.
would have made sense. And he, of course, he wanted to keep Beskar. But he couldn't get it reforged because he doesn't like the Mandalorians.
Yeah, so he's like, oh, I'll wear this then. No. Apparently it's his mate's head.
Yeah.
Which is actually a nice way, I guess, to remember a friend. I mean, if the Mandalorians came in here and killed you, I'd just run around with a t-shirt with your head on it. Your
Totally.
That's how it works, right? That's how it works.
I'd totally try and put your head in my regenerative body.
Yeah.
So that it melts in with it.
100%. That's how this works. So the next story, I guess, in this comic series is unusual because it's not a story at all.
Imperial Recruitment.
Imperial Recruitment is a series of posters.
Which I'd seen them on the internet, but had no idea that they were actually in this book.
Yeah, and lo and behold, here they are.
Here they are, and they're just these two. Only these two.
Yep, that's all it is. It's still listed in the tables of contents as a story, and look, in terms of a story, I guess it could qualify as the third one with absolutely no words, although there's plenty of words, so no dialogue, I should say, plenty of words. No
Why are
dialogue.
they advertising death in the anyway?
Well, I mean, that's one of the questions you could certainly ask. The other question you could certainly ask is, where on earth were those uniforms in the EU? Because it's quite tight.
I mean, I could see the pilot uniform, but we don't see any female pilots because they're all sexist.
Yeah, well, that's it. Although there have been female pilots, because female pilots have worked
and
their
they
way
don't
up
even
the
make the
ranks.
female suit for them.
Well, no, I mean, the guys get these nice baggy flight suits,
Yeah.
so they're like, oh, look at me, I can move around, and then apparently the ladies get what is effectively spray paint. I mean, that's so tight. That is so form-fitting. It looks like it's been spray painted on. I'm sure Cal can give us a close-up of this in editing. Or now.
Editing
On a budget. That was so light. I mean, that was
so
the whole
bad.
screen just went white.
Are you blinded?
We should probably put a warning at the beginning of this video. Wear sunglasses, people. Wear sunnies, because it's going to get bright.
May contain flashing images.
Megan, yeah, so that's very
May-
short. That's very, very short. Short but good.
And then there's
There's the Wookiee comic
the
after this, isn't
Wookiee
there?
comic after
Hey.
this, which is the concept art they showed at the start was a Wookiee with a butterfly equivalent sort of thing.
One of those little flippy floppy creatures, which there was a
It
variant of that.
reminds me of the I can't remember the character's name now, but the caterpillar in Bug's Life, but
Oh,
it has
yeah.
more wings.
You all look like little ants from up here! Oh, what a fantastic movie that was.
Yes.
Yeah,
Oh,
the flying creatures is actually a really, really similar one that appears in the original Marvel comics as well when they go to Kashyyyk. So it's kind of cool that they kept those designs even throughout the movie. I was really impressed with that.
And the wings would be a design influence on their craft as well.
Yeah,
That
those
we
big
see.
ones are... that's the exact noise they make. I don't know why they didn't hire me for the sound effects. How good would that be?
Perfect sound
Yeah,
effects.
perfect. That's like, Ben just looks at me like, Ben
Maybe
Burt's
we-
like, oh, I'm gonna go.
Maybe we should just do some ADR one time where you do all the sound effects.
Yeah, that'll be it. So we edit out all the sound effects and it's just me going, vroom, fantastic. But yeah, Deep Forest revisits Kashyyyk, which we get
And
to
it's
see an
by
awful lot.
Sang-Yun Lee.
Sang-Yun Lee. Well done, Sang-Yun. You've actually done a really nice
And the
little comic.
lighting just changed because my wallpaper changed.
So we apologise, but look, I did mention the sunglasses. If you haven't worn the sunglasses now, I don't know what to tell you. Pause it again, go watch episode 3, get your sunglasses, come back, and you'll
Get
be
your
right.
3D glasses from Spy Kids
Oh,
from back in the day.
Spy Kids is a blast in the past.
Spy Kids 3D, I think we had to chuck out a lot of those, unfortunately. But had the whole packet just stuffed full of the 3D glasses.
I had
the
a lot, yeah.
cellophane.
Yeah, I had a lot of those growing up. I don't know where they've gone. Probably in the bin. They've tried 3D movies a lot, and I don't know, it just keeps on.
There's a lot of potential for them. But I think when they went from the ones they used first to digital, it didn't work as good.
Although what it did do is it helped one man regain his sight.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, there was a man who, well, it wasn't really his sight. He had no depth perception, so he couldn't work out. There was just something wrong with the way his eyes were aligned that he could work out depth perception. And he went to a 3D movie because his family were going, and of course they dragged him along because they're inconsiderate, and they said, hey, you with no depth perception, you'll love a 3D movie. But somewhat weirdly, being stuck in there with those sunnies for 2 hours, he came out and his depth perception had actually been adjusted. And they now prescribe it for people who have this same condition, that they should go watch a 3D movie for 2 hours. When they come out, their lenses, their eyes will have actually readjusted.
So the two 3D movies are Spy Kids 3D and
Yep.
Shark Boy and Lava Girl.
So everyone who has this condition have watched those two movies and loved it. There was also episode 1 3D. Where are the rest of our 3D Star
Yeah,
Wars
I
movies,
know.
guys? Come on, come on.
That was the first time I saw it in the movies. Come on.
Boo. Bring back the 3D Star Wars. But anyway, the background has changed, so now we are no longer blue. And now for something completely different. Deep Forest, takes place in Kashyyyk. It's once again Clone Wars era. General Grievous makes an appearance, as does Yoda. So it's definitely setting up everything once again for the movie, for Episode 3, which you should have watched by now if you paused before.
All the Wookiees speak with brackets around there.
Well, it makes sense.
They're speaking Shriwook, so yeah.
Yeah, well, that's how they always do it in every comic with the Wookiees. Yeah. I'm just trying to wonder if the Shadowland comic did that because it was only Wookiees, there was no humans, but I'm certain the Shadowlands comic did as well. But that's relatively normal. And I do remember once getting into a mild squabble, and I'll call it a mild squabble because I'm a reasonable person, online with this absolute idiot who didn't get that. Who wanted to know why it is that in the movies the Wookiees are always like, "Rrr," and then when he's reading the comic, the Wookiees speak English. And I say, well, the Wookiees, my dear, are not speaking English. There was one Wookiee who kind of could, but he had a speech impediment.
Would you read a comic if it was all in Shriwook?
It's like, well, I like this bit. I like this bit here where he says, and then this bit here is, and I love that as well. And then the bit where it's, that's fantastic. No, they need to speak English
it's
because
like
you're
having
reading.
a holiday special in a comic.
Wow. I know what we need done. Anyone out there who's doing comics, holiday special as a comic, please and thank you. Yeah, so, I don't know, somehow this person didn't get that, and I'm sure they're a lovely person in every other possible way, and I regret not telling them so at the time. I think I told them some very rude things about their profession and their mother. Anyway, so moving on with this comic, it does set up things for Episode 3 in a brilliant way, and as I did say before, but I may have mumbled it, there is one Wookiee who can speak Basic to a degree, but that's a speech impediment, and it just kind of helped, I guess, move Heir to the Empire along as a plot device.
And Leia thought that Chewie had a speech impediment, which was funny.
It was like, no, other way around, lady, other way around. Yeah, so I don't know. It does, I guess, show the CIS forces beginning their occupation.
I thought I was just looking, and the probe droids look very similar to the Imperial probe droids.
Yeah, well, I guess once the design works, keep it working.
Yeah,
keep it working. I guess it's a design that you see throughout the Empire later, used for a few different ships as well.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, Yoda's talking to King Grakchawa.
Yes. We apologise to King Grakchawa if he's watching this, and we have really mispronounced your name.
And I thought it was interesting that it was him and not Tarful or something.
No, I guess that's once again, it's the thing that I actually love about Star Wars in a way, or rather, it doesn't often happen and it should, is that the idea that every planet seems to be one particular climate, which obviously doesn't happen. There are planets that have got heaps of different, climatic areas, but the idea that whenever you land on Kashyyyk, the first thing you find is Tarful. It's like, well, no, there's plenty of leaders, tribes, that sort of thing all around.
I was mainly thinking because in Revenge of the Sith, that's who you see him with, and so that was like, it was interesting to me that it was someone else that was actually talking to you.
Yes, well, I mean, he's got good relations with the Wookiees. He's
very good relations.
Yes.
And so I guess he's talking to a representative of the Wookiees as well, because he's not on the planet.
Yeah. So it's a senator. The senator from Kashyyyk.
That we call King.
Yeah,
the King's his first name.
Yeah.
Great.
It's a translation error, okay? Yeah. Translation error. Because King is and then Senator is and they sound very much the same. Wow. If we ever
then the little prince tries to go on an adventure by himself and...
Naughty little prince.
Gets hurt.
What is it with Wookiees and doing this all the time? Wookiees are always doing this sort of silliness.
We got Lumpy, we got Loy, and now we got this prince.
Honest to goodness. Young Wookiees, stay at home and watch hollows of little people dancing in front of you. Why not?
Yes.
Love the holiday special.
Old Wookiees just stay with the
no,
hairdryer over the top.
We don't want to know what the old Wookiees are doing. The old Wookiees with the hairdryers, they're allowed to enjoy themselves. We shan't ask any questions. So Celestia Galactica comes up next, within Visionaries.
Yeah.
It's a bunch of illustrations by Ryan Church. And when I say illustrations, I really mean it. It's just images. Beautiful. Beautiful images of what perhaps might have been happening and what could have been.
Yeah. I'm not exactly sure why they title these as stories. I guess
Well.
mainly more it's like this is the section of the book than the
Yeah,
stories.
and they've got to title it as something, I guess, because if they just went, these are pictures, it wouldn't be a great table of contents.
That's definitely not a canonical version of an 8080.
It is an incredible looking one, though.
Yeah, it is.
It's like, well, I don't know. So what was Lando doing on that mining? You know how the AT-ATs were carrying the massive city on their backs? I mean, it's almost like that. Obviously, this is just one, so I guess it's more like a settlement. But I guess it does have roots within the EU in that regard, the idea of an AT-AT being used for more than just war. And I bet you any moment right now there is someone in the comments going, it's pronounced at. Yes, we know, thank you, it's an AT-AT.
Do you say attest?
Attest. Yeah, someone in the comments...
Attest.
What's probably worse is there was someone typing that in the contents right then, and then I said it, and they were like, ooh, and they're backspaced.
Yeah.
So
And
go
now-
on,
and
go
now
on,
they
post
gotta,
your comment.
Now they got to answer the question. If you say at, do you say attest?
Yeah, but let us know in the comments below, do you say attest? So, yeah, I mean, that is an incredible illustration, and I mean, it could definitely work because obviously AT-ATs were used for various things after the war, including by Lando to keep his city away from the burning sun.
I would like to see a story based on Darth Vader fighting a group of Rancors.
Yeah, no, we need to see that. We need to see that. A group of Rancors just break out. I don't know why they're shipping so many Rancors at once. It's just asking for trouble.
I'm just like, well, we just stole them from Dathomir, and
Yep.
we're away from the witches now, so...
Yeah, no, Darth Vader versus the Rancor. I mean,
That looks like the Rings of Kuat, doesn't it?
yeah, I was wondering if that was supposed to be either the Rings of Kuat, or because yeah. I'm gonna go with it very, very, very well could be. I don't remember any particular assaults at the time happening on Kuat, but
And it doesn't have to be in a particular time.
no, I do like the Millennium Falcon little YT freighters,
Yeah.
a small squadron of YT variant freighters. I think they're all 1300s by the look of it.
Very interesting colour scheme.
Well, that colour scheme also comes up in... I want to say Guide to Warfare? Or Chronology, Essential Chronology, I think there
I
might
do
be.
not remember.
Yeah, there is another one that's depicted as having that blue Republic-looking paint job as well. So, Diz Cannon, we know where you got it from. But yeah, so, I mean, beautiful.
There's
illustration.
what would be Obi-Wan on a Varactor, but with an X-Wing below.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you'd probably say at the time it's supposed to be a Z95 Headhunter, except it's got the split wing design.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, this looks a lot like an X-Wing.
And I'm used to seeing the Z95 Headhunter in Jedi Academy.
So it does look an awful lot like an X-Wing, but I guess once again at this point, this is concept art. And they probably weren't thinking too much about the fact that the X-Wing was really only put into production about a year before A New Hope, or a year or two before A New Hope, and could not possibly have existed here unless it was a Headhunter modified with a split wing design, which you could do, and
and
did
painted to
happen.
look like an X-Wing.
Well, it did happen. It did happen. So, yeah, painted to look like an X-Wing. Ask no questions, we'll tell you no lies.
And some really cool... Oh, yeah. Utapau surrenders. That makes sense. Really cool art of that.
Well, if you saw a bunch of massive bloody ping pong balls coming down the inside, by the way, there they are. When I say massive ping pong balls, I mean clearly.
Oh,
Trade
they're
Federation
not
spheres.
like those exercise balls? The rubber ones?
Yeah, so General Grievous somewhat famously invaded Utapau with massive yoga balls.
Yeah.
Yep, that's what he did.
There we go.
You heard it here first. And the last comic, Warren J. Fu gives us the Eyes of Revolution.
Yes, which is the backstory to General Grievous.
Also canonical within the EU. So once again, as I said, most people seem to look at this and go, oh, that's all infinities. It's like, well, we've just gone through the whole thing, and
Actually,
no.
if you're not counting artistic interpretation as far as you read it and you get different things out of it when you're reading it,
Yep.
then that would all be canonical pretty much.
So this gives you in-depth looks at the lore all around episode 3, and it's all most canonical. To the EU, this is. To the
Yeah,
EU.
that's all my videos. So
Well, I know, but sometimes when you say canonical, people suddenly think you're talking about something different when we're not.
it's the real Star Wars timeline.
The real Star Wars timeline. Real canon.
Show me the real Star Wars timeline.
It's probably in the back. Kind of is. Yeah, kind of. I mean, there's a little bit of it, which is nice. Which is definitely nice.
Trade paperbacks and graphic novels. I actually did a combined one in the back here. That's cool.
Yeah, so there we go. What a guess. What a guess that was. Voila.
Voila.
Madame et Monsieur, le présent, le timeline. So, the Eyes of Revolution is Grievous's backstory, as mentioned.
Yes.
There is another book I'd actually like to bring out in terms of General Grievous, and I wish I'd brought it along. There was a large hardcover book called Monsters of George Lucas, and it was brought out in like 1992, and one of the designs, I swear, is a precursor to General Grievous. So I might even send that later. We can pop it up because it's pretty cool, and I'll see what everyone thinks. To me, it looks an awful lot like General Grievous before he was Grievous, like the creature with the skull on his face and the teeth poking down, and yeah, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. General Grievous as early as 1992. Bula, there we go. At least I think it was 92 or 94. It's that kind of era. It was early 90s, and it was really fun.
A lot of ideas going around.
Yeah, well, particularly George Lucas, who was flinging ideas out like it was candy at Halloween. So anyway, moving back to the comic itself, General Grievous, flying along, goes bang. He goes bang because of a little bit of subterfuge on behalf of the CIS, or Count Dooku, who was working at the time in conjunction with somebody else, and I've forgotten who it was. It wasn't Sandhill. Could have been Sandhill. Anyway, Dooku somewhat... Yeah, I think it was Sandhill.
Yeah,
regardless.
Yeah, and it shows him a little bit later, so I would say it's him.
Oh, there he is. Hello. Banking clan has arrived. So, yeah, General Grievous was a warlord in his own right, on his own planet, and the explosion was designed to look like the Jedi had done it, and so he ends up with this rather unhealthy hatred of the Jedi.
As well as them manipulating him all through the recovery.
Yeah. Good old recovery. And once again, here he is depicted missing everything from the hips down, from the waist down, and no forearms, wrists, hands, everything gonskis. But he does get given a very nice mask.
I wonder why he's fully wrapped up when he's inside of a Bacta tank.
He's just that
Which
injured.
wouldn't it be better that the Bacta gets into him?
He's just that injured.
I guess so.
Or alternatively, if you're
bandaged,
bandaged...
if he was unwrapped, his guts would spill out.
Yeah, you don't want that. Once again, I'm not a doctor, but gut spilling out
Yeah.
doesn't sound good. But I'm also wondering if bandaging actually makes him heal slower, so they can keep him in the tank for longer.
Possibly.
It's
Work
probably-
on his mental things more.
It's
like
either that or you just water the
they
Bacta down.
definitely say that they manipulate and basically brainwash him. So
Yes.
only feel the fear and hate.
Yep, so the poor guy has been turned to the dark side without any force sensitivity at all. And he joins General Grievous, and he joins Count Dooku, and he gets a little bit upset by a comment here at the end. I'm going to find it because I'd like to quote directly, but there's one thing he doesn't like being called, which is a droid, and I'm wondering where it was. There we go. He's found it first.
I am not a droid. I probably pointed that the wrong way around, did I? Oh no, I did it the right way, yeah.
Hey, there we go. Doing well. Yeah, so he's not a droid. He doesn't like being called a droid. Call him a droid and he gets angry. And for a guy who's angry already, that's just double angry. And you wouldn't like Grievous when he's double angry. Even a Snickers bar isn't going to help that bloke.
No.
Will people get that reference? Do they have Snickers bars?
They should get that reference.
They should get that reference, honestly. Anyway. If
you
you don't,
you're an uncultured swine.
Ooh,
Uncultured swine.
I was going to say you can use Google, but no, we'll go with uncultured swine.
Yeah. You gotta have the Toy Story there.
Bit rough. Half of
Uncultured swine.
our viewers just disappeared.
Oh, well. We're not negative enough normally.
No, that's true. We need to be a bit more negative, and the people will love us.
I did find it interesting there's Magna Guards earlier on, but they're obviously not programmed by Grievous.
No. Well, Grievous, if he's going to have those guards, and if he's going to beat them that easily, he's probably going to want to upgrade the programming. Yeah. But, you could just get a Microsoft subscription, and they'll look after him.
And then they'll just have to restart to update when you
all
need
the
to
time.
battle.
Mid-battle.
Mid-battle.
It's like, sorry, updating. Yeah.
Blue screen of death.
It's upsetting when that happens. They really should just ran them on Linux.
And it's really awesome, the final page of that as well. Him with the lightsaber.
Yeah, which, if you're going to read the comics, you'd probably go straight into the General Grievous comic. which is also well worth a read if you haven't. General Grievous basically nips off with a bunch of Jedi children, and not to spoil it too much, but hilarity ensues, and by hilarity I mean death.
So they have chosen death.
Well, look, they've certainly chosen to not have a nice time. But yeah, and then it goes into the biographies, and there's a little bit more art, and I wouldn't mind a couple of these illustrations full-sized, so that's upsetting, but no, generally this
In the
is...
archives at Lucasfilm.
They'll be there. They'll be there. Unless they got thrown out with everything else. EU.
Yeah.
Either way, though,
Oh, here we go. It's even got infinities at the end of the timeline.
10 out of 10 would recommend. Yeah, they usually have infinities at the timeline there. And then, oddly enough, see, I would even take issue with this. They've got Star Wars Tales 1, 2, 3, and 4 in infinities. And we might cover it one day in a video, but Tales 1, 2, 3, and 4 have plenty of stories that were canonical. So,
It's a mixed bag. with
it is a
Tales.
mixed bag with Tales. And everything from Tales 20 onwards, I'm going to say 20 onwards, was pure canonical. Everything pre-20, it was a mix.
So I guess they just chucked him in there because it was easier for him.
Yeah. Well, when you kick things off with Skippy the Jedi Droid, you wouldn't want to get people confused because they might think that that was somehow canonical to the EU, and oh heavens, we wouldn't want them thinking that.
Oh no.
People are silly.
Yeah.
10 out of
I
10
was-
recommend. Well, I'm giving it 10 out of 10. What do you reckon?
Oh, I love the 10 out of 10. It's pure EU
Yep, pure EU. It
Definitely.
gets
goodness.
Yep.
And the only thing would be it's different to other comics is it's just not one full storyline, but that's not the intention of it. It's
No.
really cool to see stories based off the concept art as well.
Yeah, I mean, if you like Star Wars Tales, you'd like this for the same kind of reason. It's a whole bunch of short stories. It's much fatter than an issue of Star Wars Tales, which traditionally was like 4 or 5 stories, depending on their length. So this one coming in at what, like 12? I don't want to count that, but I'm going to say 10 to 12 stories if we don't include the artworks. So, yeah, solid read, 10 out of 10. Does go into a lot more lore and backstory than people give it credit for, is a lot more canonical than people give it credit for, and just has a really, really fantastic, I guess, foundation to then watching episode 3, which you should have done if you paused this video about 25 minutes ago.
Yes. And after watching the Clone Wars micro series.
And after that, definitely after that, or maybe during.
Yeah.
You could watch the
Well,
micro series while reading the comic and try and take in both at once.
Have a look at where they chronologically place in
That'd
my
be fun.
timeline.
Hey, link below.
Yeah. And I probably won't keep that one up to date, but it's always in the About section on my channel.
It's always there.
And be good.
Nice. Have fun.
So yeah. Thank you guys.
Hooroo.
Hooroo.